So, hello and welcome everyone to the European Academic Integrity Week that we are having for the second time. It all started, as you all know, tomorrow on Wednesday is International Day Against Contract Cheating. And we decided that it was so interesting that we wanted to fill it up with more activities. So we decided to start organizing Academic Integrity Week for the whole week around this event tomorrow. And today we are very happy to get a presentation from Shivadas Sivasubramaniam and Zeenath Reza on understanding ethics and ethical behavior beyond the real medical practice and clinical research. This event is organized by European Network for Academic Integrity in collaboration with Uppsala University. So, Zeenath and Shiva, the floor is yours. We are very happy that you're here.
Thanks, Sonia. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on wherever you are. Let me welcome to our presentation. It's not a presentation as such, it's a workshop. So I wanted your contribution, and there will be some questions. Try to answer them in the Padlet or in the message. So what we thought was, I mean, year after year, my background is a medical stroke biomedical science. So my focus mainly on medical practice and clinical research and how ethics and the ethical behavior affects clinical research and medical practice. But then I joined the European Network of Academic Integrity, started working with Dr. Reza, Zeenath Reza Khan and Sonia and others. And then I realized there are life outside medical practice or life outside clinical research, and that itself controlled by the ethics and ethical behavior. So in this presentation, we are only going to talk much about the ethics and ethical behavior outside the medicine or medical practice or clinical research, not about the medical practice. So let me start by saying the history of ethics. Fortunately or unfortunately, the history of ethics actually started from the behavior, human behavior, especially in the field of medicine. There are so many atrocities, known and unknown atrocities have happened, starting from Tuskegee studies in America, where the people have been unethically treated, followed by Nazi medical experiments, Willowbrook, and even now gene editing, so on and so forth. So because this workshop is not about the history of medicine or not about the history of ethics, we are only going to talk about the practical application of ethics. I'm going to move around, just give you the background about the ethics. So ethics is in everything we do. It is more or less about giving respect to others, respect to your profession, respect to your protocol, respect to the patients, respect to the subject, and then try to be a reliable person in a society with honest approaches, with honesty and accountability for your mistakes, and then try to reflect upon that and then move forward. So ethics is more or less evolving day by day. The new internet online activities increases. The ethics also changes accordingly. So my point of view here, and probably Dr. Reza Khan will agree with me, that rather than just talking about the principles of ethics and the history of ethics, we focus on how to behave or how to apply these ethics in a normal day-to-day life in, say, in subject areas like teaching, accounting, law, business, so on and so forth. And I have been doing this kind of activities using case studies, is more or less case studies made up of, say, 3 to 4 minutes or maximum 5 minutes clips of real life situation, and then asking you to decide about what ethics or what unethical behavior has been identified in that video. So we are moving away from the medicine and we are taking real life experience, and it's all about ethical decision making. And it is not simply about the outcome, but it is the manner in which you achieve them. And in medical practice, it is really, really high, because there's no point you repeating 18 different principles of ethics and ethical behavior if you can't abide by them, or if you can't apply them according to the situation. So I will pass it on to Zeenath, and Zeenath is going to lead this slide. This slide is only about, say, 2 to 3 minutes about the video. Let me first introduce to the video. Watch the video and let Zeenath ask the question first, or afterwards. It's up to you, Zeenath. I will give it to you. When you are ready, give me a shout. I will play the video.
Yeah, maybe we'll do watch the video first.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Can you hear the video?
Yes.
A runaway train is heading towards 5 workers on a railway line. There's no way of warning them, but you're standing near a lever that operates some points. Switch the points, and the train goes down a spur. Trouble is, there's another worker on that bit of track too, but it's 1 fatality instead of 5. Should you do that? Many people think the right thing to do would be to switch the points, to sacrifice 1 to save 5, since that produces the best outcome possible. Now imagine the train heading for the workers again. This time it can only be stopped by pushing a very large man off a bridge. His great bulk would stop the train, but he'd die. Should you do that? Most people say no. But why not? Both thought experiments are cases of sacrificing 1 to save 5. What the trolley problem examines is whether moral decisions are simply about outcomes or about the manner in which you achieve them. Some utilitarians argue that the 2 cases are not importantly different from each other. Both have similar consequences, and consequences are all that really matter. In each case, 1 person dies and 5 are saved, the best option in each harrowing situation. But lots of people say they would switch the points, but they wouldn't push the man off the bridge. Are they simply inconsistent, or are they onto something?
Okay, thank you, Shiva. So to everybody attending, this is my question. So you've seen the trolley problem, and this is something that we actually use a lot, particularly when we are about to teach like ethics in engineering and IT and computers and like a lot of STEM subjects. So this is like our go-to scenario. So my question would be then to ask, what would you do and why? So what I would like to do is probably, we've put a Padlet link in the chat. Click on it, and what will happen is you'll see columns. So the first column actually says runway trolley dilemma, and you'll see a small plus sign just below it. Click on it. Don't put your name. You can put an identifying mark that only you will recognize, but don't put anything that we would recognize. And we want you to be comfortable in answering which one would you do and why. Remember, those are the only options that you have. Either you let the train go and kill the 5 people, or you pull the lever so that it goes to the other track where there's just 1 person, or you push the person from the bridge to stop the train to save the 5 people. So which one of these 3? These are the only 3. There is no 4th choice here. So Shiva, I can see that people have started writing.
Yeah, I'm looking for it. Yes.
Somebody said I would pull the lever.
I will read it. Yeah. I will pull the lever and choose 1 person to die.
I would probably just freeze.
And
so we'd have 5 people dead. Okay.
The other one is I would probably just froze. Yeah, and end up 5 people dead.
Yeah.
Yes, there are so far 2 plausible. Yeah.
Okay. I do see some more entries coming through.
Okay.
Do we wait or should I continue?
Yeah, I would
one
choose.
person to die instead of 5. That's fine, but whoever's answered that, we would really like to know which of those choices. Would you pull the lever or push the person? Because remember, both of those means killing 1 person instead of 5. So we would really want to know which one of those choices you would actually take.
So yeah, whether you push the obese person from above or you pull the lever to that person.
Pull the lever. Yeah. Somebody else said they would pull the lever. So I think we've got the gist of it. This, and believe it or not, majority of the people will come back and say they would pull the lever. And when we have actually done this as social science experiments in classrooms, we have seen that the reason a lot of students will go, people, not just students, not naturally people will gravitate towards pulling the lever, is because that is an action that is physically distant from the actual dilemma, which is of killing a person, right? Whereas pushing a person down is where you're physically actually doing the work, right? So this case kind of gives you an idea of how we dissociate ourselves when we are faced with an ethical dilemma and how we actually come to the conclusion. And if you remember from the video, it very quickly tells you about some theories, like the utilitarian theory, which only looks at consequences. Am I killing more? Am I killing less? So if I'm killing less, that's the best way out. Whereas if you think from Kantian perspective, we think about the intention, right? In this case, in either case, you are killing somebody. So it may not be the best option to go forward. Shiva?
Oh yeah, so this is actually normally happens in medical research and medical practice. I mean, good example is if you've got one heart as a transplant heart and you got 2 patients, one with the patient who had got family to look after, the other patient who can be a scientist or a world famous scientist who are going to trying to decide for whom you are going to use that heart. That is the difficult decision making in ethical dilemma. So the reason I put this ethical principle, there are 18 different ethical principles. Normally, this is where most of the ethics teachers start their lectures. And because just to follow the norm, I am putting that, but I'm not going to explain anything about it because as far as I'm concerned, there's no point memorizing these 18 different pillars of ethics, unless otherwise you can abide by this. So our approach is always trying to work according to the scenarios and then giving you the scenarios in real life example. And that's what we are going to do. And then let you decide and then highlight which is good and which is bad as far as we can. Oh, again, it's just like informed consent. You analyze all the probabilities and try to get the best probability that would suit that or ethically suit to follow. So before we go into further, I just wanted to highlight, as far as ethics is concerned, most of the ethics revolves around medicine and medical research, related research. And there are some behavioral science research as well. And this is where the ethics conflict comes in, because there are certain differences or certain norms that have never been allowed in medical research is allowable in social science research. For example, most of the time, the medical research is done or any intervention is done for the benefit of a human being. But the social science research, not many of them are always with the intention of human being becoming a beneficiaries. There are other areas just to see what is happening. So a good example is that most of the time the researcher in the medical research, they are not always interested in the participant behavior. They wanted something out of it, something new, something that will cure patients. But on the other hand, in the social science, they are always worried about the behavior of a participants rather than the actual benefits. And likewise, in the medical research, there's always the informed consent, and the informed consent should inform everything you are doing. But in social sciences research, there are leeway for you to deceive people, tell something else and do something else to understand their behavioral changes. And we are going to go through some examples in a minute as well. And also, the social science research can be carried out in the public sector setting, but medical research is always in a private, exclusive setting. And as I told you before, in the medical research, you cannot deceive anybody or any participant, but in social science research, as long as it is, the deception is not anticipated to create physical or emotional harm to the subject or patients, it is allowable. So there are differences in different subject area. You need to remember that as well, though. That's the reason I always say, do not just say the medical ethics and apply to everything, because there are some exceptions, like any exception to rule. So I'm giving you some example here. So there is a research was carried out by recruiting community participants. In that research, there were health promotion leaflets were displayed in the waiting room. So they said, we are going to do some research. We can't tell you what kind of research is that. You need to come to the clinic, and in the sitting room of the clinic, there are health promotion leaflets explaining that how, by doing a little bit more exercise every day, you can burn calories and be healthy. So all the leaflets, all the books and information magazines is all about how to reduce weight by doing small exercises. And then the study actually looked for whether the influence of leaflets making the participants try to behave healthily. So a good example is, the sitting room is in the downstairs, and the interview room or the research room is probably fourth floor or third floor actually. And then they watched people, how many of them, after sitting there in this waiting room for around, say, half an hour, reading all these things, and whether they decided to take stairs or they are taking elevators. But until the end of their investigation, they haven't told anything about the aim of the research. Only when they finish, they explain, this is how we looked for, all the rest is just a fake. In medical research, you can't do that. But in social science research, it is allowable, because at the end of the day, the deception is not going to harm these people. That is what they say. And also is going to be the greater good rather than the difficulties they are going to say. But there might be people, they don't like to walk, they take stairs, or probably they are having some physical deformities taking stairs. But because they are enthused by these leaflets, they might take stairs and then probably go into trouble. So what do you think about that kind of people, or that kind of situation? Again, rather than waiting you to answer it, I will answer myself, because, we wanted to, for you to think about it for the next slides, and so that I can give you a lead answer here. And that is where, when they set up the experiment, in the informed consent, they ask the question that, are you suffering from any kind of physical disabilities? If you are, then please do not take part in the study. Although they haven't told anything about the study, they were protective about these people as well. So yes, in social science research, or I call it non-STEM research, the deception is somewhat allowable, but you need to make sure that deception will not harm physically or mental thinking about the participant. So let's go to the videos one by one. So this is where the workshop start, and then probably get interesting if you are not going to go into sleep. It's only about Most of the slides are 3 to 4 minutes or maximum 5 minutes. So we have selected different professions and giving some example of real life happening, and then let you decide what's wrong with this ethics, or what is unethical there. So this is my first video, and if you go to the Padlet, you can answer the questions in the column ethics in teaching number 1. So, but before that, listen to this video.
This short video represents how well-meaning interactions with students lead to blurred boundaries. As you watch, consider the guiding questions listed in the discussion post. After, post a short response and reply to a post or two from one of your fellow future teachers. Ms. K is a veteran teacher who is very popular with her students. She frequently offers students extra help after school, so it's not uncommon to see students visiting her classroom after school. She has tutored one of her students, Melissa, in a variety of subjects over a 2-year period. During that time, Ms. K has emailed and texted Melissa's cell phone using her personal email address. At first, these exchanges were very general, sometimes unrelated to schoolwork. For example, asking Melissa about a sick family member or how she was getting along with friends. Recently, the student began to text her teacher about more personal feelings. What do you think? How might you handle this situation? We want to hear from you. Use the questions in the discussion post to guide your response.
Right, I will stop there. And I wanted your response in the Padlet, and then I will explain each one of them and then elaborate on what we think that the teacher should have done it. So feel free to.
The discussion question is very simple. What is the dilemma that is shown in the video? Is there a dilemma? Why or why not? So you've got the Padlet, the second column, ethics in teaching 1. You can just like before, just plus sign and then put in your answer. Should be great.
So here is, I'm just explaining what has happened in the clip. There's a teacher, she's really caring and dealing with the student, and they used to contact each other by phone or texting and emailing. But now it comes to the situation that the student is revealing some personal things, her feelings or her experience to the teacher now. So blurred lines, as the video says, concerning professional and personal, difficult in particular case, too concerning students' age, especially, you know, first thing I am worried about the fact that the student age is very, you know, is underage, and also it's a professional relationship. And this is where we as lecturers in the universities, we also struggle a lot when we have to draw a line. Because, you know, university students, they are almost most of the time, they are all 18 years or more. But still we struggle a lot, because when you become too personally caring, then everything become too personal. So that's the reason that we draw a line. And the next one is mixing the professional and private is not a good idea. The similar problem can, yes, exactly. That's what I was saying. Yeah, actually, you are more or less read my mind. It normally happens with the PhD students as well, because, you know, after some times, you know, I have been invited by several PhD students for lunch at home, and, you know, I always think about, okay, whether they are living in a student accommodation or they are living alone, or whether they are inviting me as a family gathering or alone. So these things are, you know, we need to draw a line which is professional and which is a private, and then their private life is private. And these are the dilemmas we come across every day, and this will be much more higher in the teachers and teaching professionals. And that's the reason I tried to select one each from different discipline, apart from medical discipline, because I am getting fed up of using medical as a bill because I got thousands of them. So we'll go for the next scenario.
Just before that, maybe just quickly, do we have any teachers in the audience?
So, yeah.
Do we have any teachers in the audience by any chance?
Yeah, if you can let us know, because the next one is also the teacher's behavior. Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah. So this is again teachers' personal behavior. This is really interesting for me, but I don't know what you think. Let's see.
As third-year teacher at Littletown Middle School, Terry Sanders brings an infectious energy to her classroom. Both faculty and students like Terry and find it easy to get caught up in her enthusiasm. And like many young professionals her age, Terry is active in social media.
A lot of us here are new teachers. I think Terry's in her third year or so. And most of us are still in our 20s, so we all follow each other on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And it was never a problem until about a week ago. Her tweet said, "Just saw a cop in the school parking lot with the dog. Hope they don't go near my car. Hashtag just saying hi."
Scott became more concerned about Terry when one of her posts over the weekend seemed to cross the line.
It was Monday morning, and I had some time before my first class started, and so I'm looking up what people did over the weekend, and I find this photo of Terry on Instagram. It looked like she was at some kind of party. She has teachers and students who follow her. You know, I have no idea who's seen this by now or what, if anything, I should do about it.
Right. Okay.
As third-year teacher at Littletown Middle School.
Anyway, again, the question is that where should we draw a line here? That's the problem is, we all use in social media, and whether we allow our students in the social media or whether we have separate social media for interacting with students or separate for personal, and how unfortunately, especially Facebook and others, they try to join as well without your knowledge. Whatever you post in one thing, it will be seen there. So anybody, your thoughts, please.
Again, here the dilemma isn't just about the teacher's behavior. It's also about, social media being an extension of your workplace. Is it an extension of your workplace? Does it reflect back on your job or your, profession and the company that you work for? Because, if you're partying at night, should that have an impact on who you are as a teacher during the day? So Padlet again, third column, ethics in teaching 2. We can see some people are writing, so we're just waiting for the comments to come in.
Yeah. So this probably affects everyone as well. I mean, we were very careful in selecting the dilemmas that are affecting every one of us. I mean, I am active in social media, and I got my own rules. I will tell you what are my rules, but whether those rules are ethically right or not, I don't know. Again, we can discuss that, but I think that, it might protect me from any accusation about my behavior, because we are being watched by the professionals, watched by our managers, watched by our students, and even watched by the future students of us who are studying in schools as well. So our behavior should be exemplary, but we do have our social life as well. So how are we going to separate our social life? And in order to become a popular teacher, you need to be as friendly as possible for the students. You've got to show them that you are approachable, helpful, but on the other hand, we have to draw a line. I do not think it is necessary to use social media to communicate with students. I would agree and disagree with you. I would not use personal social media to communicate with the student. Yes, that the second part I do agree with you. But the first part, I know, not me, I know even in my university, there are teachers who are lecturers, they are using social media, especially after the pandemic. They are using social media to clear doubts, do the personal academic tutoring, everything, because it was easy for them to have a group tutoring everything as well. What a boring colleague. I am a teacher that likes to party as well, and I don't think that it reflects in any way on my professional life. Personally, I don't have my students as friends, but in some cases, people that already were in the social media become my students, so they have to live with my party photos. You know what? There are one or two of you are in the same situation like me. This is exactly me. These are my rules. I do not accept any students into my social media until they pass out as a graduates. But you know what happened? They pass out as a graduate and came to do come back to do postdoctoral studies. So I accepted that. So then I can't, you know, it was difficult for me to explain that I need to block them now. So that is a problem as well. I do understand about the boring colleague about, you know, we do have a party, but I think, in my opinion, what I do was, I mean, I got 3 or 4 social media. This is me, I'm just telling you. And one of them is LinkedIn. The LinkedIn, if the students comes in, yeah, I accept them because LinkedIn is a professional network. I only post about my research and everything. Nothing, it's not social at all. It's highly professional, but all the rest, I do not accept students. However, things like this happens. You know, I accept after they have completed, but they come back. So those are the problems, and I think there are still people writing. I think anything else, if you want to deny, remember this is a workshop, so you have the right. Yeah, sorry.
Maybe I put a spinner on it, Shiva.
Yeah, sure.
Should we judge a teacher for what they're doing after office hours?
Yes.
I mean, how does that reflect? Even if I have students on social media seeing what I'm doing, how am I not a human being normal who has a life, who goes out and parties? Sonia says no. I'll tell you why I asked, because when I teach this theory called virtue ethics in class, yes, right? And we're actually, in fact, because it's IT ethics, we're talking about social media and how people do see it as an extension of work. Yeah. So the scenario that we look at is very close to this, but maybe a little bit more on the other side, where we are basically looking at a teacher who is a great teacher by day and goes and does pole dancing and all of that in the night, right? And would that have an impact on them being a teacher by day? So you'd be surprised. A lot of students think it shouldn't have an impact because the teacher is a teacher when they're in school. And when they're outside of office hours, they are their own human beings. They've got their own rights to do what they want, what kind of entertainment they like, etc. So teachers, any views on this?
I mean, to be honest, I mean, that's a very good point, Zeenath. And, you know, this is where I said that these are the gray area even in the ethics and ethical behavior and professional behavior. I'm not talking about the ethics because this is, you know, you got two sides of the coin, you know, you got two arguments, but I can only reveal one of the recent incidents that happened in my previous institution. After I left, I heard that this is exactly one teacher behaved like the way we would have behaved. You know, I got a personal life, I got a professional life, and then he separated it, but one student took the photograph of his post. I don't know how he got into that, and then he more or less put a claim to the university that this is not the way to behave. And then he was not suspended, but he was given a final warning. And in UK, final warning means it's a kind of insult for your professional life. So this actually happened. Again, this is nothing to do with ethics. This is something to do with the professional practice. And even the people who handle the investigation, you know, they contacted me for advice, and they themselves understand, you know, and they always say, off the record, I don't see any point, but because of this university, we need to decide. And then I more or less advise, probably, you know, give a warning, but they went a slightly bit extreme and then gave a final warning. So these are the dilemmas. I mean, this is where I am trying to, or sorry, we are all trying to address that, you know, there's no point memorizing ethical principles. You need to apply accordingly. But especially there are certain people, we are privileged in one side, on one side, and the probably not so privileged on the other side, because we have a professional life, and whatever we do to separate the professional with personal life, sometimes due to the networking, there is a conflict. So let's go for the next slide. So this is ethics in business. This again, as I told you in the beginning, we are trying to bring example from different discipline. So this is actually, again, actually happened in somewhere in America. Let's see.
So all that little stuff like tie downs and connectors, just go with the count on the invoice. They're almost never wrong.
What about these wireless cards?
Count them. Is that the new 600?
Yeah, looks like it. There should be 25 of them here.
Cool. Let me see one. Just put down 24. What else is in there?
There's some flash drives and sound cards. Is that okay? Aren't they going to miss that?
Don't worry about it. Just change it to 24. Look, this is what, your third day here? Tell me this. How am I supposed to recommend a product I've never even used?
Well, I don't know.
Of course you don't, because it's not possible. But if I take this home, start using it, then I can honestly tell our customers, this is the best wireless card we have to offer. Get it?
Well,
What's up, guys? Hey, how's the newbie doing?
Not so good. We were just going over our little product testing plan, and he doesn't seem to be grasping the concept.
What's the grasp, kid? Getting free stuff is one of the main reasons I still work here.
But doesn't it seem like stealing to you guys?
Oh, stealing? From who? If you change it to 24, the store gets a free replacement. The distributor charges it back to the manufacturer.
And the manufacturer comes out ahead because when we tell customers we use these things at home, they sell more. Everybody wins.
I guess I never really thought of it that way.
Trust me. I've been doing this a long time. Just change it to 24.
Okay. So it is my third day on the job, and I don't know all the company's policies yet, but a product testing plan that requires us to change the invoice? This sounds like a moment of truth to me.
Right. So here the problem is, you know, I think this is getting more and more clear cut now. But here the problem is, you know, it's more or less a new way of product testing. Whether it is ethically approvable or not, that is a question you need to answer that under the column ethics in business. But this is, for me, is clear. But when I did it with one of the business schools, one or two of the students are not happy with what I said. You know, they kind of agreed, oh yeah, that's a way of product testing. Anybody want to write anything?
I think we're saying business, but even for instance in academia about things like books, stationery, printing paper, you know.
Yeah.
I think all of that falls under this category of
To be honest, I don't know how many of us do not have any printers at home.
So this is not acceptable. This is theft.
Yeah. Business approach will not have many.
The third response is interesting.
Yeah.
Business approach will not have any qualms about bending rules. So yeah, sticky but realistic.
Yeah, it is realistic, you know. I mean, I know that it's unethical, you know. I'm sorry for giving the answer, but I know it is unethical, but they got a point. They got a point. How am I going to recommend a product if I haven't used the product myself? This is exactly one of my business school students asked me. And then, I mean, because he's a student, so I said, you know, there should be a procedure for testing those products. Most of the business they have testing the product, and then probably the most of the business offer these freebies as well. But this one is they are taking their own freebies. Anybody else? I mean, I like the first one. You know, it's not acceptable. Full stop. Yes, as far as ethics is concerned, it is not acceptable.
In fact, Shiva, because my dad was the head of Dubai Zoo here, and even the zookeepers used to live inside. I remember as a kid watching the zookeepers who were in charge in the kitchen, cutting the fruits and vegetables and everything. Half the time they'd be eating. And then at the end of the day, they'd take a lot of the food and they'd go home, cook and eat that same food. So they'd never, I don't think a couple of them ever did like grocery shopping.
Yeah. And I can give you another example. You know, our forensic scientists, they do a first year project, they with carrots. So the forensic students will be given a carrots. They need to identify the carrot by explaining how the carrot looks like. So it's more or less a crime scene investigation. So just by giving an explanation about how the carrot looks like, the other student got to identify the carrot. So it is interesting, but the problem is that at the end of the practicals, all the lecturers and technicians, they take the carrots at home. but my justification as their head, my justification is, what can we do that carrot? Either you throw it in the bin or we need to give it to somebody rather than wasting the environmental thing. So I need to write, I mean, our university, for everything, you need to have a justification. So I wrote the right justification. That's the reason after this, we are asking the lecturers to take it on. So as long as, you know, I mean, what I'm trying to say here is I purposely said that carrot example is that if you are trying to move away from the ethical behavior, then we need to have the due process in place, written, saying that because of this, this, and this, because of the wastage and things, we have allowed this to happen. Then you are safe as an institution. So I purposely wanted to tell this carrot example. It's still happening. I think the practical is going on next week. Right, we'll go for the next one. This is about, you know, this is nothing to discuss, but we can discuss if we want to discuss. This is about, because most of the time when you talk to the mathematician, they said, oh, we don't have to worry about ethics because, you know, you know, 6 + 4 is 10. There's no unethical about that. But even in accounting, as a profession, you do have some dilemmas, and this is how that it is explained.
Picture the scene. One of your most loyal clients has had a year of terrible bad luck. Things look bleak. They need your help to present the numbers to their stakeholders. Tell the story right, and you can help your client to bounce back. Tell it wrong, and it could be the end of their business. So how far should you go to create a believable story, and where would you draw the line? In real life, you're bound to face ethical dilemmas like this one. It's your job to spot when trying to help has gone too far and use your professional judgment to choose the best way forward. Another example, you've recently taken up a new job. Your new colleagues are about to pull off a major deal. Everyone is very excited. Everyone, that is, except you. You know that the deal is a big mistake. The problem is that you only know that because of confidential information you were privy to when working with a client in your previous job. If you keep quiet, the deal will backfire and people will lose their livelihoods. If you speak up, you'll be breaking client confidentiality. To make matters worse, when the deal goes wrong, it will be obvious that you would have known. You see, sometimes it feels, when faced with an ethical dilemma, as though none of the options are great. In these situations, all you can do is choose the best course of action, and then most importantly, you have to follow it. Take the case of Cynthia Cooper. In 2002, the former Vice President of Internal Audit for telecommunications giant WorldCom discovered false accounting entries that artificially inflated the company's profits by billions of dollars. Despite overwhelming pressure to keep the matter confidential, Cooper's integrity won out, and she blew the whistle on the USA's then largest corporate fraud in history. So what are you supposed to do when faced with an ethical dilemma in your accounting role? Here are 3 questions you can ask yourself. 1. What does the law say? The steps you take to resolve an ethical dilemma must be lawful. 2. What might happen? Write down what courses of action you could take to resolve the ethical dilemma and their consequences. You're aiming for the course of action that is the most ethical and the least problematic. 3. Who can you ask? If the dilemma is too much to deal with alone, seek help, ideally from management. Make sure to check your company's confidentiality and whistleblowing policies before asking for help from elsewhere. Dealing with ethical dilemmas in accounting isn't easy. That's why the professional bodies take it so seriously. Make time to reflect on ethics and include it in your CPD so that you know the principles and processes to consider when dealing with those tricky grey areas. It shouldn't be a dilemma.
So he is saying that it shouldn't be a dilemma. Again, you can write you can write your thoughts there, but there are 2, although it's one video, there are 2 scenarios that has highlighted. The first one is more or less the basic pillar of ethics, because whatever the proposal was based on a confidential information he gathered from a previous institution. So in that particular instance, I would say that he shouldn't go ahead and then publish that plan, because the plan is entirely based on unethically retrieved information of confidential information from another, on a client or on whatever they are doing from another company when he was working. And this is probably, even this might be, I don't know, a long time ago, probably you would have heard about a lecturer from Scotland. When he moved on to Cambridge, he recycled his questions from Scotland in the Cambridge students, and then he was sacked because he was more or less self-plagiarizing things. It went to that extent. It's happened a long time ago. Is the fact that this is not, the questions actually belongs to the Edinburgh University, not the Cambridge University. So this is a link between business and higher education as a business as well. And that, any thoughts on that? Whether the proposal made on the basis of the information gathered from a previous organization, whether it is acceptable or not? Anybody wanted to write anything? Yeah, at least one of you are writing, so let's wait, and then let's go for the next, the whistleblower in a minute. Again, these are the day-to-day. Yeah, no, it's not okay. Yeah, it is not okay, because it's based on confidentiality. That is where, if it is a confidential thing, that ethics is clear, and he shouldn't go through that. But the video itself is slightly misleading, because he is saying that you need to check the law, but yes, he's right, because when you check the law, it will say, no, you can't do that. But the second one is look for a plausible alternative. I don't think for this particular instance, there is no alternative because it's somebody else's work. And then one of you is writing, but we will still, sorry, Zeenath, do you want to comment about this scenario before we go to the second one?
I was actually going to just say something in relation to the whistleblowing. So I thought maybe I'll just...
So the whistleblowing again, I will explain the whistleblowing again for the sake of the listeners. That so here that the problem is there is a problem was found out by the CEO or the deputy CEO, and if he kept quiet, there will be, nothing will happen except her what I call ethics is affected. But if she whistleblow, the company will. I think in the end she blew the whistle, and then the company was more or less closed down. So, yeah, Zeenath, you want to do?
Yes. So I think whistleblowing in itself is a dilemma, and it is one of those double-edged swords. You look at it. So we are saying we expect those few to stand up and become the heroes of the community, and whistleblow on something unethical that is happening, right? And that may be a question, because if you do see somebody doing something wrong in your company, what do? Do you sit and just stay quiet? Do you try to talk to the manager about it? Do you try to go to the media or to the government agencies, etc.? And then what happens? If you're whistleblowing, there's always going to be a blowback on the person who is whistleblowing, on the company itself. And again, whistleblowing may not always be done with the intent to save the greater society. If I'm a disgruntled employee and I was not happy that I didn't get the promotion, now I know the secrets of the company. Now I will go and whistleblow because I didn't get the promotion. But had I gotten the promotion, I probably would have kept quiet. So there are a number of dilemmas even surrounding whistleblowing. And I think maybe it would be interesting to hear again from the attendees what they think about whistleblowing. And you can put it in the Padlet, the same line under ethics and accounting.
Yeah, and also, please use the same line for the next video as well, because we spent some time on accounting, because I was challenged by one of my maths and accounting person. You will never find a dilemma for accounting. So I did it. I found 2 dilemmas. So we'll discuss that. And again, to be honest, Zeenath, I'm really pleased to hear about your narration about whistleblow whenever it suits you.
Yes.
That's that is what most of our company people, they are doing it, because if there is problems in the company, they just keep quiet until such time they get a pay rise or anything. If you get a pay rise, they just stop whistleblowing. But if they, I mean, that is not ethics,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very good comment from you, and there's somebody writing.
Also, like for instance, in the US law, they have this Whistleblower Protection Act, which also, if you won the case and you've proven that there's something unethical happening, you get a chunk of the money. So a lot of the times there are case studies that have shown that people sit and wait for 5 years just collecting evidence, knowing something bad is happening, but they're sitting and just collecting evidence because they want to be sure when they whistleblow, they win the case and they make money out of it. And, so again, they're not necessarily thinking about the society or the victims of whatever unethical is happening. They're thinking about themselves.
And then I got a very interesting comment from one of the attendees that there's hardly ever enough appreciation or protection for whistleblowers, which is definitely true. I mean, the genuine whistleblowers should be protected, but even in the companies, what I call the so-called companies, SOPs or companies law, there isn't anything to protect the whistleblowers. There are so many things protect different type of people, but there's no clause to protect the whistleblowers. And yes, some companies say that, oh, we always value people and value they have the freedom to tell, but in the real scenario they don't do that as well. That company means, even the universities are companies as well, and there is a culture. And at this point I will take an opportunity to more or less self-advertise about these whistleblowing. The European Network of Academic Integrity, we offer this kind of advice for the whistleblowers. We are not expert as such, but we are not lawyers, but we will, most of the time, the whistleblowers, if you are from a university, we will try to share our experience and then try to guide you. This is, as far as I know, this is free advice, so you can always contact us. But again, this is a good example of, this is a more or less, it's an education video, it's not a dilemma video. But even with the dilemma, the education video, I and Zeenath were able to find out 2 dilemmas there in an education video. So that's what we shared. So the next one is, again, this is another accounting related mistake or careless mistake. And yeah, I'm not going to explain. Let you watch the video and then I will explain.
You have selected case study 2. It was just a careless mistake. Please follow through the story closely. You are David, the finance director in the company.
Finally, I'm done with the review. Ah, Linda, what is the matter?
David, I would like to report that one of our major customers, Super Private Limited, has just returned to us most of the shipment of goods delivered to them towards the end of Q4 in the last financial year. The total sum of the goods returned is $4.5 million.
$4.5 million? That's going to bring down the sales performance. Okay. Thanks for informing me. I will need to inform the sales director.
Okay, I will make the required adjustments for your review.
David, what is the matter?
Johnny, listen. Super Private Limited just returned a large amount of goods. It's $4.5 million.
About that, I can explain. My staff made a careless mistake. He shipped 50,000 units instead of 5,000 units.
I will need to adjust the sales figure downwards by $4.5 million then.
Can you wait till January before putting through the sales adjustment instead of putting it through in December? It was just a careless mistake and everybody is looking forward to the bonus from our good sales performance.
I am afraid not.
David, please, you know how this adjustment will affect our sales performance. All our bonuses will be badly affected.
My bonus will be affected too, but the accounts should always be true and fair.
I have already reprimanded my staff and the matter is closed. Do not insist on adjusting the numbers and make everyone suffer because of it. We can speak to the CEO.
Now let's review and understand the learning points from this case study. First, there could be a self-interest threat, since the potential adjustment would lower bonuses. Second, there could also be an intimidation threat, as Johnny said he would escalate the issue to the CEO after David insisted on making the adjustment. David insisted on making the adjustment to the sales in the correct financial period, even though this would lower his bonus. If Johnny gets the CEO to apply pressure on David, David may consider consulting the audit committee or those charged with governance. In the worst case, David may have to consider resigning to disassociate himself from the unadjusted financial statements, which would contain misleading financial information.
So this is another good example from the accounting. Normally, it would have happened to any accounting firm as well. Here it's a simple mistake. Anybody can do that mistake here. because the mistake is that instead of sending 5,000 unit, they send 50,000 unit. So that actually shows as an increase of sales of 4.5 million. But the company who bought it realized that they resend back. They took a 5,000 unit and the less 45,000. They send it back. So that means that sales should be adjusted. But the problem here is it's not a mistake that's the problem. The problem is they are trying to hide the mistake in order to, for the personal gain, to wait until January. I can explain a little bit more about that, because after the January, they are going to come clean. They will get the bonus and they will come clean. So at the end of the day, the slate will be clean, but whether the slate is really clean, that is the question. Zeenath, you wanted to add anything?
Yes, I think this is where I go back to what I first said about whistleblowing, that do we, should whistleblowing be a moral need or a duty, or is this just the duty of a select few in the society who we will look up to uphold integrity in the workplace, or should it be everybody's job to uphold the integrity at workplace? And if that is the case, then who is right or who is wrong here? So it would be interesting to see some parallel entries there.
Yeah, you can write it in the same column in the ethics.
Same column under ethics in accounting.
Yeah, please. I mean, there was somebody who started writing and then they
stopped.
Maybe they're trying to listen to us as well.
Because, with the threatening thing, for instance, it's so common for people to pull rank or show muscle or bring in the big guns. I think this is where all these stereotypical sentences have even come, the phrases have come. In fact, I just overheard this conversation a few weeks back where this person was sharing how this parent came and they wanted the result of their child, but the child hadn't signed the disclosure form, right? So the reception could not give it to them. They said, no, but my child emailed you. They're like, they could have emailed, but we still need this document to be signed. They're like, no, but I'm here and you can see the email, so I need to get it. And then because of course the person said no, then the parent was like, okay, so do you know who the board of director is? I know this guy is. I'm going to give him a call. So such an intimidating habit people have sometimes of pulling rank.
Yeah, I mean, actually, one of the attendees has written something. It's clearly inappropriate. No, they should not delay 1 month. Here, two things are in at stake. One is the delaying thing itself. Although at the end of the day, everything will be okay because you are going to report everything. But within that time, you are going to gain something. So it's personal gains against the ethics. The other one is what you suggested is continuing from the previous slide, is that if he become a whistleblower, then he's going to be reprimanded. That's the problem. And one of the things I wanted to highlight in this, in a company or in a university, everyone should own ethics. It is not ethical advisor's job to own the ethics. It's everyone own the ethics. And that is, at the moment, it is difficult. Even in universities, it's difficult because, if it is come to ethics or there are, please contact so-and-so. No, ethics affects everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, so thanks for that. It is clearly inappropriate in a bold letter. That's true. Right. So this is, let's hear about the media. Is about, again, I'm just giving some example from different subject areas. Every area there are ethical issues, and that's the things we wanted to highlight, that it's not medicine or it's not clinical practice. It's every single subject area there is ethics in it. This is one of the media problems about the Google. Is a growing problem. Not only Google, Facebook or any other medias are doing it, but there are so many other scenarios like, image manipulation, and especially in news, they put a question mark and change the entire course of action. So just, even if they lie about and put a question mark. So has so-and-so, sorry, so-and-so has killed the so-and-so, question mark. But when people read the question, they ignore the question mark and they read it as X has killed Y, rather than X has killed Y, question mark. And this has happened so many times as well. So this is the media ethics. To be honest, that is not actually handled so far properly. And here the media is trying to get everything from us. I mean, good example is, I think one of my colleagues sent an email about using a particular type of curtains, and then by email. Then on the Facebook account of mine, I get advertisement of these type of curtains. So anyone wanted to hide about the ethics behind it? To be honest, we haven't found a solution for that because there's no law yet. Anybody want to add on?
And in fact, it's not just media. When you think about these large giants, it's so much more, because they aren't just talking about content. There is privacy issues, there's security issues. Even when you think about artificial intelligence as a technology and the way that's being used by a lot of these big corporations, the way they're constantly mining our data to find patterns and then saying, if you don't want it, don't use it. Where's the responsibility? Who bears we as customers, and the end users, or the developers, or the company or the corporation themselves? So I think these are the kind of questions we'd like some maybe answers on.
Yeah, to be honest, all the participants are stunned because, I mean, to be honest, I don't know the real answer, how to tackle this. I mean, I'm really interested in how to tackle this problem because, the governments and laws are trying it very difficult to impose anything on these kind of media giants.
Because they're catching up. The problem is they're just catching up to the corporations. I mean, so the law is always one step behind everything.
Yeah, a good example is, only just now they are talking about banning the paper mills in UK.
Yes.
The paper has come, so it's going to be banned soon. But just imagine how long would it took the UK government to act. Absolutely. And likewise, they are catching up rather than leading it. Anyone wanted to, I think, probably most of the attendees are stunned by the information. It's not only that, there are so many things. I mean, I was really worried. I was looking for a video clip that this actually happened, because I think in India or somewhere they actually wrongfully identified or accused somebody just by using the question mark. So they just put X killed Y, question mark. Oh yeah, I know, I can understand that. He's a famous Hindi actor. I forgot his name. Sunil Dutt's son, Sanjay Dutt.
Yeah.
So they try to link it just by putting question marks after question marks.
Yes.
So nobody is interested in Google. They are worried that Google is watching us.
No, but it's worthwhile thinking about these, because when you think of ethics and ethical responsibilities, right? Even if we know now as an audience, we've got quite a few of you here, and there's us now, we know about Google, but does that mean we're going to stop using Google or its byproducts. And I think that's where Shiva said, like, what is the solution to this? Do we have one? You think about medical sciences and ethical dilemmas, you've got the law in place and you've got the rules in place, and you can catch somebody on malpractice, right? But then when there are things like this happening, if you've got an AI software that is recognizing the person wrongly just because of the color of their skin, who do you blame? Who gets into trouble? Nobody gets into trouble. At the end of the day, as a university, I might stop using the software because it's being biased towards my students. But does the company itself that actually developed that software get into trouble? What's the trouble? Maybe a lawsuit, just a tap in the hand, and that's about it. But if you really compare it with, let's say, the medical sciences, right, where there is a huge repercussion on your actual profession, on your reputation, etc., I think we need similar levels of seriousness and repercussions coming in these other areas that we've just discussed. And I think a lot of because of maybe capitalism, I don't know, a lot of the corporate sector issues that we've discussed are the ones that are still up in the air with question marks. Shiva?
Yeah, so I think we are going to wrap up, but I'm trying to, I'm going to go for the next. Is more or less a summary of what we wanted you to take away from this workshop, and then the following slide is just summarize it, and then we can have about 5 to 10 minutes for your feedback. You can still use the last column. You haven't used it in the Padlet to give us feedback so that we can improve for the next time. So
let's be honest.
Summary.
Even the most honest, truthful, and ethical person will find him or herself in the midst of a full-blown ethical crisis at some time in his or her career. It is an unfortunate yet inevitable event from which no one escapes. Although you can't hide from ethical dilemmas, you can do something to prepare yourself. The first step is to become aware and equip yourself with knowledge and skills so you'll be ready to handle whatever comes your way. So, let's start with the question, what is ethics? Well, ethics are the basic moral ground rules by which we live our lives. We all have it. Either we have good ethics or bad ethics. You can't be devoid of it. Of course, you can have really, really bad ethics, but that in itself is a form of ethics. It all has to do with our conscience. Our conscience, that moral self-awareness of our behavior that tells us when something is right or wrong. The question is, what do we do with it? Especially in the workplace. Well, despite your level of good ethics, you come to work and your employer has certain specific expectations of you, such as playing by the rules, obeying the law, being honest in your behavior and speech, to look out for the company's best interest, and to show respect for property and people. These are the basic ethical expectations of your employer. So, where do workplace ethical dilemmas come from? Understand that ethical dilemmas are everywhere. The workplace provides no shortage of ethical dilemmas to test your ethical decision-making skills. They lie in the way you deliver service or respond to crises, how you react to the policies and practices of your company, the choices you make personally and in team situations, how you fulfill your obligations to coworkers and customers, how you present your company and its products to customers and shareholders, how you deal with outside agencies, contractors, and vendors. Remember that everyone is watching you. Your ethics are always on display to others. Be aware and careful of how others perceive your actions. Of course, ethical dilemmas come in all shapes and sizes. Some ethical dilemmas are issues of conscience, while others come from outside your sphere of influence. Whatever kind of ethical dilemma is, each one has its own twist and strategy for getting through it. First, there are issues of conscience, such as, should I call in sick or go to the beach? Should I use the photocopy machine or my personal project? Should I use my computer laptop or my second job? Can I pocket a little extra cash by fudging a travel expense report that no one seems to notice? Of course, some of these issues have few stakeholders, and others that many stakeholders, such as, Should I keep quiet about an unnoticeable but costly manufacturing mistake? When everyone else seems to ignore inflated sales and financial numbers, do you report it or just go with the flow? Do I report harassing or intimidating behavior of supervisors or others that could make trouble for me? For all these ethical dilemmas, there is usually a right and wrong answer, an ethical option and an unethical option. It may not be so easy because we have strong needs and feelings as well as the ability to rationalize and make excuses to get what we want. But you do have freedom of choice to make the wrong or right decision. And you are obligated as a functioning member of society to make the honest choice or suffer the consequences. This is why we have laws, police, and jails. We choose to obey and play by the rules or face punishment. It's our conscience and our choice. The other kind of ethical dilemma comes from outside your sphere of influence. You didn't ask for them, and you've done little, if anything, to encourage them. Examples might be, my boss is making lewd sexual remarks and advances. I work with someone who can't tell the truth. Our top management is corrupt and arrogant. A customer is always asking for special favors. I am pressured to cover up for the mismanagement of my supervisor. I am being isolated and discriminated against for my views. For these kinds of ethical dilemmas, you need strategy and a system to help. Your ingenuity, experience, and character may get you so far, but what you need are strategies that you can pull from your arsenal. Regardless of whether you're dealing with issues of conscience or with issues outside your sphere of influence, you need to consider the stakeholders. Stakeholders are all the people and parties who have some connections to your problem or situation. You may not think about the stakeholders who are connected to your ethical decisions, because it's so easy to think only about your self-interest and survival in an ethical crisis. But you are not alone. Your decisions oftentimes have consequences and stakeholders far beyond what you initially considered. So who are the stakeholders? Well, there are the receivers. These are the people who are on the receiving end of your ethical decisions. Third parties. These are individuals, groups, departments, and even communities that are affected by our decisions. The workplace environment and culture, because ethical decisions don't happen in a vacuum and can have a profound impact on everyone. And of course, you. Physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Remember, your career, reputation, family, safety, and security are at stake. It is sobering to think about all the stakeholders who are affected by your ethical decisions. You may not have intentionally intended to hurt anyone else or drag them into a crisis, but you did. Don't just assume that your decisions will have no consequences beyond your tiny world. Think about all the stakeholders before you act, not just how the consequences affect you.
So that's more or less summarizes what we wanted to tell you, but just to complete the session. So these are our takeaway to you, that the ethics governs everything we do, you know, from the time you get up until you go back to bed. Everything we do, it is governed by ethics. The basic ethical principles are universal. Yes, the ethics has started from medical background, but every single area is affected by ethics. There are some exception for the rules, especially the social sciences, research, so on and so forth. But the basic ideas are the same. And as I told you before, there are some exceptions, and these are inevitable because of the need of the research and need of the people. And that's the reason I and Zeenath and the others who are working on the ethical side of it, or of academic integrity, we insist on the specific guidance on ethics and ethical reasoning that should be subject specific rather than just using the medical ethical background. And that's the reason that we figured out a title that beyond the realm of medical and biomedical research, because there are ethics outside medicine as well. So with that, we will stop our presentation, but we still got another 5 minutes left for anybody to ask any question, either in the Padlet or in the what you call kind of the chat. We can try to answer it. Again, you know, we can't provide solution to everything, but we can guide you in such a way you can find your solutions. Anybody feel free. I'm working, probably by this time you would have noticed that both of us are working through 2 computers, so I can have an eye on what you are writing and try to answer.
Shiva, in our last column for any last thoughts, somebody has said something interesting, that since our title said understanding ethics and ethical behavior beyond the realm of medical practice and clinical research, they would have loved to have had some connection of the beyond the realm to the medical and clinical sector, like reflective analogies that might serve further social impact. Since we've got like a few minutes, maybe you want to just touch up on that quickly?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I start about the analogies is the fact that, you know, the one of the things that is not going to be affected as affected as medicine is the patient side of it. So if you remove the patient side of it, the confidentiality is a good example, because if it's come to medicine, then the confidentiality is patient confidentiality. But if it comes to an organization, the confidentiality about the people inside the organization. So the subjects might change, but the basic rules and the principles will be same as well. But the different one is, as I suggested before, that in the medical research, that everything should be explicitly explained to the volunteers or the subject or the patients. You cannot hide anything. But in the social science research, there are room for deception. There are room for doing an investigation outside your the closed environment. So there are some differences as well, and that probably will be the same case for the accounting and business as well, because in that business model we explain that, you know, them more or less stealing a video clip to see whether it is working well is not ethical. But some companies, they do have a free takeaway for the, or reduced price takeaway for the employers, for them to view, or sometimes they can give feedback as well. So there are flexibilities around it in a different realm, but the main principles are the same. And if you look into each of the 18 pillars of medical ethics, not everything will fit in well with the other areas like teaching or social science or media. But media itself has got loads of ethical issues, loads of ethical dilemmas that has not even looked at, because the fact is that we are still working with the old model of medical ethics and trying to fit in as we go along. And media is a biggest threat, because it's more or less the media freedom versus the ethical behavior. That itself will be another presentation or another workshop for us to not only give a presentation as such, for us, or all of us to get together and then try to understand where we draw a line, where is the media freedom and where is the ethics behind the media freedom. I hope I summarized, but, you know, to be honest, you know, beyond the realm is, I think, you know, the analogies are massive. Probably, I think we might give that as another presentation at some other time. And again, thanks for that feedback. It really helped me understand, okay, what is my next step, or what is our next step as European Network of Academic Integrity. Thanks ever so much. Anything else?
No, I think we are done and we are like spot on time. Sonia?
Absolutely perfect. Thank you. I really enjoyed your presentation. It was so informative, fun to follow, engaging, and thank you so much. You're such a great team as well. I like watching what
Actually, we are the team, you included.
Yes, but I like the interaction between the two of you. So thank you so much. And I'm going to send the invitations to anyone who has registered for Thursday and Friday right away. If you haven't done that yet, send me an email or register on the website, and please join us. We have 2 more fantastic webinars to watch and engage in this week. So thank you so much for today.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.